All right, you sea dogs. Let's take a moment to embrace our canine side with this new game called A Dog's Life. Because drinking in public and urinating on lampposts is something many of you are no doubt already comfortable with. True to its title, this game faithfully recreates our world through the eyes of a flopsy mutt and its battle against endless hunger. Wander the streets in search of bones to bury, and beware the evil dog catcher, who does his very best to throw your fuzzy butt into the doggy slammer. Now, let's open up this puppy and get down to business. First step is laying out your game board. Goes where all can reach. You'll also be needing everyone to have access to a 6-sided die and the dog catcher's van, which starts on the black paw print. That happens to be the dog shelter. Each player takes one random dog card and the figure that goes with it. You'll see a resemblance, no doubt. Each doggy also needs 8 piddle tokens and a hunger counter that matches their color. You'll each need one random den card. This card will show you where your doggy is going to start and where he or she is going to be storing bones. So, in the case of Max here, he's going to the farm. So we go to the space that matches that card. The yellow paw print is the way in and out. It's an entrance, it's an exit. And this den, like all the other buildings, are treated like squares. So he begins inside. It will take him a movement to get out, so to speak. Daisy starts on the golf course, which is down here. Each doggy also has their own unique set of 12 action cards. Shuffle those up and put them in your play area. You're going to be using them to decide the outcome of certain things. Successes, failures, things like that. Next, take one piddle counter and put it on a bladder space. You got to go, but you can hold it. Then take your hunger counter and put it on space 4. You're always hungry, but you can last a bit. Next, you're going to place your trash can tokens, your bone tokens, and your newspaper tokens, which need to be shuffled and placed face down so no one can see the numbers. And then finally, roll to determine first player. And now it's time to play. The turn sequence is as follows. Step 1, food. Step 2, dog stuff. Step 3, dog catcher's movement. So first we start with step 1, food, also known as getting hungrier. Move your food counter one space to the left, because dog's work is hungry work. If you're at 0 and can't move, we'll deal with that in a second. But now we proceed to step 2. Step 2 is dog stuff. You'll be able to take actions here according to the number of action points your doggy has on his card. Max here has 8, so you can do 8 things. Your ultimate goal is to get 3 bones buried back in your den. Accomplish that, and you're top dog. Now the first thing you may want to do is move. You may spend an action point to move 1 square. That's 1 action. That's 1 action. Now you can move through other players' dogs. You can move through the dog catcher's truck. However, you cannot stop inside the dog catcher or another dog square to interact. Say there's a bone on the ground. That you can't do. Paw prints are the entrances and exits to buildings and dens. The blue paw prints let you get into and out of the newsstand. You'll notice this one has multiple entrances and exits. You can take a different way out than you took in. Yellow paw prints mark the entrances and exits to dens, and you cannot enter any den other than your own. The red paw prints are delivery addresses. You cannot enter delivery addresses unless you have the newspaper with that exact number printed on it. The black paw print marks the dog shelter. You cannot voluntarily enter this building. And if you enter a square containing another player's piddle token, you must stop and forfeit the rest of your actions for this turn. Proceed directly to step 3. So if this is going to happen, make sure you do it last, because your dog is going to sit there sniffing the lamppost for the rest of your turn. Another action you can take is searching a trash can. If you happen to be in the same square as a trash can, you can spend 1 action point to flip the top card of your action deck and check for success or failure. Now if it's 1 piece of food, then move your hunger counter 1 step to the right. It can also be 2 food, in which case you'd move it 1, 2 along the hunger track. And also, you'll get 3 in the trash can section, which goes 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right on your hunger track. Now, if you happen to be here and you got 3, 1, 2, yeah, well, you get nothing else because you max out, and that is that. If you get a bone, then you're really in luck. You take a bone token and you put it in one of your mouth spaces. Now you're all ready to head back to your den and bury that. You're 1 step closer to the win. The final thing that you can get is a sad dog. That means you get nothing. Mark the trash can as having been searched with a token. Once you've used up all the tokens, it'll be time for a cleanup. And if you do place the last token, well then, the big cleaning happens. Remove all other trash can tokens and piddle tokens from the board as they scrub the streets clean. Another action you can do is to beg in a restaurant. Restaurants are marked by red paw prints. Once inside, you can spend an action point to do the dog face. Flip the top card of your action deck to check for success or failure. You can only do this once per restaurant per turn. Once you've spent your action point and announced that you're begging in the restaurant, take the top card of your action deck. And you know how this works. Check the restaurant space. If it's food, you take 1, 2, or 3 pieces, depending on what's shown on your hunger counter, up to the max. If it's a bone, well, then you take a bone token and you put it in your mouth. 1 of the spaces, if there's one available. And if it's nothing, well, then you've gotten the shaft. That's the life of a dog. Another possible action that you can do is to get a newspaper. Make your way to the newsstand and then spend 1 action point to take 1 random newspaper token. Secretly look at the number on the back, then put it newspaper side up in an available mouth space on one of your squares. If you haven't got an available space, well then you can't do this. Move along to something else. Alright, you've got yourself a paper. Now take it to the building with a matching number and get inside. Spend an action point, and then show the token to the rest of the players so they know you're in the right spot. Put it back in the pile. Now you've delivered your paper, time to get your reward. Flip the top card of your action deck and check the delivery section. It'll be the usual, either food, bone, or beat it, mutt. Another action you can perform is to take a drink. Get yourself to a square with a fountain, and then spend 1 action point to take 1 piddle token and add it to your bladder. Which leads us to another action. Mark a lamppost. Get yourself to one of those and spend 1 action point to take the piddle token from your bladder and add it to the lamppost. This square is now your territory. For our next action, it's time to fight. If you land adjacent to another dog, then you may attack that dog to try to win what it's carrying in its mouth. Both dogs will draw the top action card and compare the paw prints in the fight section. The highest number wins. Now, if the attacker wins, then the defender will drop everything that happens to be in its mouth in that square and move away the difference. In this case, 3 minus 1 equals 2. So we would move 1, 2. If the attacker loses, their turn is over and they proceed to step 3. If it's a tie, nothing happens, and they can decide whether they'd like to do that again or try something else. If you find yourself in a space with a bone or a newspaper token, you can spend 1 action point to take that token and add it to your mouth, assuming you've got an available space. Also, you may drop 1 bone or newspaper from your mouth by spending 1 action point, depositing it on the square where you're standing. There could be good strategic reasons for this. Finally, make it back to your den with a bone in tow, and then spend an action point to bury that bone in your den where it'll be protected from other dogs. If you've got another bone, spend another action point to bury that one. Bury 3 of them and the game is yours. So get back out there and find that last one. Now, once you've used up all your action points or just wish to move on, step 3 is Dog Catcher's Movement. This is where you send this truck at your friends. And don't feel bad, they'll be doing the same to you on their turn. All you do is roll the dice and then move the truck that many spaces. He moves forward, he moves left, he moves right, but he cannot move backwards. And leave him pointing the direction he was headed. And if he's at a crossroads, just sort of leave him in the middle. Now, if the dog catcher should land on the same space as your pooch, he drops all tokens from his mouth onto that square and goes immediately to the first level of the pound. Do not pass go. Do not collect 200 note bones. Now, if he lands adjacent to your pooch, well, then you got a fighting chance. What you'll do is draw the top card of your action deck and check the dog catcher section. If it's a truck, you go to level 1 of the dog pound. If it's an escaping dog, well, then nothing happens and you ignore each other until the next time that he moves. Well, that's basically the end of the turn sequence, but there is one last thing to go over. If you begin your turn, you get to the food step, but your hunger counter is at 0 and cannot move left. Well, then your doggy is caught. It's going to go to the shelter. You take anything that's in its mouth and put it on the square that it was. And then it goes to the first step of the doggy shelter, where it's going to have to escape in the same way that it would that if the dog catcher caught it. So let's talk about that for a moment. If you begin your turn in section 1 of the dog shelter, flip 1 action card and check Exit Shelter to see if you've succeeded or failed. The free-running dog means you get out. The cage dog means you move on to the next step. If you do get out, you go to the black paw print next to the dog shelter. You set your bladder to 1 and hunger to 4, and then continue to step 2. If you begin your turn at step 2, then you'll draw 2 cards at the same time and check for success or failure. If there's even 1 success, then you get out. You're sprung. You go to the black paw print next to the dog shelter. You set your bladder to 1 and your hunger to 4, and you continue to step 2. But if there is no success, then you move on to step 3. Now, if you begin your turn at step 3, all you have to do is take your dog and put him on the black paw print, because you're getting out today. Set your bladder to 1 and your hunger to 4, and move on to step 2. And that's more or less all you need to know to get started with A Dog's Life. Good luck and happy hunting. Not surprisingly, theme is something we base many of our gaming decisions on. Besides pirate games, a good fantasy or even sci-fi themes make our purses come out lickety-split. This box concerned me when I first saw it. The mere cuteness factor alone was a problem. But I've watched faces light up at the very sight of it. Some people who just do not game have asked to play. So it's now fair to conclude that it is an attractive theme to people who don't specialize the way that we do. It is also fair to say that I personally may be missing out on some incredible games due to a first impression. This game is fun. We've enjoyed every session. I wish I would have had this back when we were playing Chutes and Ladders with the little ones. Point management, pickup and delivery. There's a lot of training for bigger games in this. I believe it could be reskinned into a kind of Merchants and Marauders Jr. Whether it's for you or not is completely up to your tastes. The most obvious target audience for this game is children, but the weight and the length of it is about like a round of Castle Panic, with a similar amount of luck, but quite a bit less strategy. I think that this one is a keeper for us. A Dog's Life is now up on Kickstarter, so you may wish to take a look. Thanks for sitting in on this Pirates Parley. Farewell and game on.